What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Samson, and today's video is going to be a bit of a quick video. We are going to be installing a power steering rack on my Stroker Maxima. Many of you guys already know I do have the engine out of this car. Just did the 6-speed manual transmission swap. Here is the engine right here. You can see I do have it set down right here. The 6-speed manual is already on. You guys can see the automatic is over here. So we do have this engine out doing the swap, and while we have it out, we're gonna go ahead and change the power steering rack. Now, I was having some old issues with this power steering rack leaking. It seemed to be leaking right here at the seals. And so you guys can see, it's kind of hard to tell right now because I've tried to clean some of this stuff up, but it was leaking right there and right there. That's where all the fluid would normally end up dropping out on. Now, granted, I hadn't changed the power steering fluid in this, so it was a little bit dirty. I probably need to do a better job of doing power steering fluid changes and flushes, but figured while we have the motor out, since it's a whole lot easier to do with the motor out. You can do it with the motor in, but it's a lot easier to do with the motor out, as I'm sure that you guys can tell, because it does sit right there. Figured we go ahead and order one, get it put in. We do have this Detroit axle power steering rack. You can see the rods are a lot stiffer than the rods on mine, so should be a lot better feeling. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and try to put it in. Unfortunately, I didn't film myself taking it out simply because I didn't plan on making this video, but I figured some of you guys, if you do end up wanting to do your power steering rack change, it's only a few bolts. Most of you guys are probably smart enough to know that the installation process, in order to remove it, it's just the reverse of the installation process. So many of you guys are probably smart enough to figure that out, so I figured we'd at least record ourselves installing it. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and see if we can get this put in back where it belongs. Now, one good thing about actually having the motor out is that you do have a lot more space to actually get in here. And I do need to probably pick this up. You can actually get in the engine bay and for the most part, actually just sit down right here and work. Now, the hardest part about this whole thing is actually lining this little spline piece up with the splines on the rack. I think whenever I took the old one out, it took me almost, I would say it took me almost about 30 to 40 minutes just to take it out, because the easiest way to do this is to drop the subframe. You guys can see you do have 4 bolts right here to drop the subframe, and then one over here on this side. I didn't want to drop it just because I didn't want to go through that extra little bit of work. So what I ended up doing was actually removing the motor mount that sits in this area. And then I was able to actually get this whole assembly to slide out. I think it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult putting this back in and getting it installed. Now, you're going to want to try to get these splines right here lined up with the splines that are inside this shaft. It's kind of hard to do. What I did basically was just simply put it in here and then start trying to push up. And I was able to get this first half over. I'm gonna have to put you guys down so I can get the second half over, but I'll show you what it looks like whenever it's finished. All right, guys, so we got the shaft and the splines all lined up in the actual steering column. You guys will be able to tell if you're seated all the way down because there's a bolt that goes in here. I just threaded it in. It came with this little, I guess, sort of a guide. I don't know if you actually need this up here, but I kept it on just because it came, the old one came with it, so I decided to keep it on. It couldn't hurt. But this little bolt right here gets threaded in. You can see it also has splines on it, and it won't fit through there unless you actually have it seated all the way down, because there's almost like a little groove cut out for this bolt, so that way that it doesn't, you know, end up sliding itself back out. Then as far as everything else, you just have to lift it up enough to actually, you can see this side is way up. It goes in this little groove. This side right here, I'm gonna have to maneuver it a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can do it with one hand. I might have to put you guys back down. All right, guys, so we were able to get it pushed in. Just had to use a little bit of persuasion, which did require me to use 2 hands. There's not enough room in here for me to fit a stand in here to actually show you guys, but all I had to do was just maneuver it. Got it down in these grooves right here. As you guys can see, I did go ahead and put the bolts in on the back side. It's where they go in and they thread into these nuts right here. All we got to do now is get it tightened down, get this bolt right here tightened down. I've already went in and actually moved the steering wheel around, so the only issue now is just going to be just making sure that it has the proper alignment. But let me get everything tightened down, show you guys the finished product. So now everything is tightened down and torqued down as far as the bolts to actually mount the power steering pump to the subframe goes. The bolts themselves are a 19 millimeter, and you shouldn't have to worry about holding these bolts because the way that the subframe is designed, they actually have grooves in them that hold them in themselves. Now, all you got to do is put your hoses back. Don't forget to tighten this bolt. This one is a 12 millimeter. It's already tightened down. As you guys can see, if we move the steering rack, it is moving, which is a good thing. Like I said, we are going to have to get aligned. Now you're going to want to tighten down and put your hoses back in. The other hose is actually still on the engine right now, so I'm not going to be able to put that one in yet. But as far as your high pressure hose, I believe this one is, you're going to want to go ahead and actually tighten this one down, put that one in. It is going to be a 17 mil. All you got to do is put the wrench up there and then just keep going until it starts to feel snug. Can be a bit of a long process, but nevertheless, this should be the last thing that you have to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this tightened up and show you guys the finished product. All right, it is tightened down all the way as far as it'll go. Last thing you'll have to do is just to slide this clamp back over the little metal hose that's up here, and then that should be all that she wrote. I always try to actually move my clamps a little bit just to try to make sure that they're a little bit snug up there and make sure that it doesn't pull off at all. And if it pulls off, then I know I need to do something else clamp wise, but this should be good to go. That is the full install of a power steering rack. This is for a 2006 Nissan Maxima, but the process should be pretty much the same for all vehicles. We do have an upcoming series with the Camaro coming up, as well as the Corvette needs a new slave cylinder. So we're probably going to have to drop the transmission and the torque tube in order to get to that. So make sure that you guys stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss the content. Bringing a lot to you guys here in the near future. 6-speed swap videos are still coming. And so make sure that you guys please like, comment, subscribe if you like this type of content. But just like that, guys, I will go ahead and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.